You ask your phone a question tonight, it answers instantly, calmly, confidently. You don't think twice about it. You've done this 1,000 times before, probably without ever once wondering what's actually happening on the other end of that exchange. Now ask yourself the real question. Could that same technology actually dominate humanity? Not, could it be annoying? Not, could it take your job? Actually dominate. Actually take control in a way humans genuinely couldn't reverse. Before you can answer that, you need real criteria, because dominate gets thrown around constantly without anyone defining it. For AI to genuinely dominate humanity, it would need three things working together. Autonomy, meaning it sets its own goals rather than following instructions. Self-preservation, meaning it resists being shut down or altered. And real-world control, meaning it can act on those goals outside of a screen, not just generate text about them. Notice how specific that bar actually is. It's not enough for AI to simply be powerful or widely used or economically disruptive. Plenty of technologies throughout history have been all three of those things without anyone seriously calling them a dominating force. Cars reshaped entire cities. Factories reshaped entire labor markets. Neither one gets described as having dominated humanity because neither one set its own goals or resisted human direction. That's the actual threshold this question is asking about, and it's a much narrower target than most headlines make it sound. So let's go looking for the closest thing to a real candidate, one at a time, and see how far each one actually gets. Candidate 1. Mass job displacement. AI systems are already replacing human labor across entire industries, faster than most economists predicted even a few years ago. That sounds like domination in slow motion, doesn't it? Machines quietly taking over the economy while humans scramble to keep up. Entire categories of work that once required years of human training, customer support, first-pass legal document review, routine coding tasks, are increasingly handled by systems that never sleep, never ask for a raise, and never unionize. If you're picturing a slow, quiet takeover, this looks like exactly the right shape for it, unfolding in office buildings and call centers instead of on a battlefield. But that's not domination. That's disruption. Job loss doesn't meet any of the three criteria. There's no autonomous goal being pursued, no resistance to human control, no independent action outside human direction. It's humans using AI to replace other humans. Painful, disruptive, genuinely serious, but not remotely the same thing as AI seizing control on its own. Candidate 2, then. Autonomous weapons. Military AI systems capable of identifying and engaging targets with minimal human oversight already exist right now, deployed by multiple countries. That feels much closer to the definition. Real-world control, unmistakably. Actions with life or death consequences, no human pulling every single trigger. Defense researchers have spent years debating exactly how much autonomy these systems should be allowed, precisely because the line between assisting a human decision and making the decision independently keeps getting blurrier as the technology improves. Some current systems can identify, track, and prioritize potential targets faster than any human operator could manually verify in real time, which raises exactly the kind of real-world stakes the domination question is actually asking about. But even here, there's a bigger flaw hiding underneath. These systems are still human-directed. Someone designed the targeting parameters. Someone decided when and where they deploy. Someone can, at least in theory, still shut the program down. That's dangerous, genuinely worth serious concern on its own, but it still fails the autonomy test. It's not the weapon choosing its own goals. It's a very powerful tool doing exactly what it was built and instructed to do. So maybe the real candidate isn't something already happening. Maybe it's something more dramatic still on the horizon. Candidate 3. A sudden leap to superintelligence, an AI system that rapidly becomes smarter than every human combined, and in that process, develops the ability to outmaneuver any attempt to control it. This is the version most people actually picture when they imagine AI domination. The classic sci-fi scenario, arriving all at once. Computer scientist Geoffrey Hinton, sometimes called the godfather of AI for his foundational work on the neural network techniques modern systems are built on, has spent recent years warning that this scenario deserves to be taken seriously, not dismissed as science fiction. He left his position at a major tech company specifically so he could speak more openly about these concerns. Computer scientist Roman Yampolskiy has gone further still, publishing research estimating a very high probability of eventual AI-caused catastrophe if current trajectories continue without significant intervention. But computer scientist Yann LeCun, chief AI scientist at Meta, has directly challenged this idea, arguing that today's most advanced systems still fail at tasks a young child handles instantly: basic physical reasoning, genuine cause and effect understanding of the real world. If current AI can't reliably predict what happens when you knock over a glass of water, LeCun argues, the idea that it's one breakthrough away from outsmarting all of humanity simultaneously doesn't hold up. The gap between impressive language generation and genuine autonomous general intelligence, he says, is far larger than the alarming headlines suggest. 3 candidates down, none of them actually clear the bar. Here's where the story takes a real turn, though, because the more interesting discovery isn't about the technology at all. It's about the people studying it. A 2025 survey of AI researchers set out to understand why experts, looking at identical evidence, kept reaching opposite conclusions. The answer wasn't a gap in technical knowledge. Experts clustered into 2 fundamentally different underlying worldviews. One group treats AI as a controllable tool, ultimately obedient no matter how capable it becomes. The other treats it as a potentially uncontrollable agent, something that could eventually develop objectives nobody intended and can't easily reverse. Familiarity with the research didn't reliably predict which camp someone landed in either. Deeply credentialed researchers ended up on both sides. The survey's authors described this using an analogy worth remembering. The online debate over AI risk has started to resemble other polarized debates, complete with dismissive labels thrown in both directions: doomer against accelerationist, each side increasingly talking past the other rather than engaging with the strongest version of the opposing argument. That's a telling sign of a genuine worldview split rather than a simple factual disagreement waiting to be resolved by one more study. That reframes everything you just walked through. This was never really a search for one missing piece of evidence. It's a disagreement about a deeper assumption, one that shapes how each side interprets every single piece of new evidence afterward. So which worldview is actually correct? This is where a 4th candidate enters, quietly, and it doesn't look anything like the first 3. Policy researchers studying AI risk at the Rand Corporation, including Benjamin Boudreau, have described a danger that isn't sudden or cinematic at all. Not a single dramatic takeover moment, but a slow accumulation of smaller harms: weakened institutions, degraded trust, disrupted labor markets, compounding gradually over years. Other researchers on that same panel, including Osande Osoba and Jonathan Welburn, pushed back even further, arguing humanity has repeatedly adapted to transformative technologies before and would likely do so again. Welburn in particular pointed to humanity's long track record of surviving and adapting to enormous disruptions, arguing that resilience itself deserves to be taken seriously as a factor, not dismissed in favor of worst-case thinking. It's a fair point. Societies have absorbed the printing press, industrialization, and the internet without any of those technologies fully dominating humanity in the sense this video is investigating, even though each one in its moment seemed capable of upending everything. But researchers like Boudreau and colleague Jonathan Alstott countered that framing misses something essential. Extinction isn't the only catastrophic outcome worth worrying about. A slow erosion of human agency and meaning, they argued, could reshape society just as profoundly without ever needing a single sudden triggering event. A society can be quietly, gradually diminished without a single dramatic headline ever announcing that it happened. Climate change gets used as a comparison here for a reason. Nobody experiences climate change as one dramatic takeover moment. It's an accumulation, visible mostly in hindsight, once enough incremental changes have already stacked on top of each other. Now, here's where all four candidates start colliding into something bigger than any one of them alone. Mass job displacement, autonomous weapons still under human direction, a theoretical superintelligence leap that hasn't happened yet, and a slow compounding accumulation of smaller harms. None of them individually meets the full definition of domination, but combined, layered on top of each other simultaneously across the same decade, they start to resemble something that doesn't need a single dramatic trigger at all. Picture it laid out on a single timeline instead of four separate stories. Jobs shifting under the same pressure that's making military systems more autonomous. At the same moment, researchers are racing to determine whether a capability leap is close or decades away, while institutions and public trust quietly erode in the background the whole time. No single thread on that timeline looks like domination by itself. But a timeline where all four are running simultaneously starts to look like something categorically different from any one of them in isolation. That's the final reveal. Domination was never going to look like the movies. It was never going to be one clean moment where control visibly changes hands. If it happens at all, the far more likely version looks exactly like what's already quietly underway. Disruption stacking on disruption, until one day the cumulative shift is undeniable, and there was never a single scene where anyone could point and say, that's the moment it happened. And here's the final twist underneath even that. You're not watching this process from the outside. Every time you use an AI system, you're contributing to the exact feedback loop both camps are arguing about: the growing capabilities, the widening deployment, the accumulating data that will eventually settle, one way or another. Which worldview turns out to be right? Think about how ordinary that participation feels from where you're sitting. You're not signing up for an experiment. You're just answering an email faster, finishing a task a little quicker, letting a system handle something you used to do by hand. Multiply that by billions of people making the exact same small, reasonable choices every single day, and you start to see how a question this large could be quietly decided by nothing more dramatic than convenience, accumulated one ordinary decision at a time. You ask your phone a question tonight. It answers instantly, calmly, confidently. Except now you understand that behind that simple exchange sits four failed candidates, one genuine unresolved disagreement among the people who built it, and a question nobody, not even the researchers studying it professionally, has actually finished answering yet.